Hello, friends. As if there were not enough grief in this world due to the pandemic, due to the uprising, due to all of the losses that are woven throughout life. This past week, two of our members at Unity Church have died, neither of them from COVID. And many of us are experiencing deep grief. And one thing we know about grief is that it awakens all the other grief we have experienced recently and sometimes even long ago. And for many of us, this is a season of grief, awakened by the many losses, named and unnamed, of living through a pandemic. Not only the losses of those who are suffering from COVID and some of them dying, but also the losses in our own personal lives as we shift to a different way of living. There are also all those losses due to the systemic racism that underlies the uprising we are also living through. And so in this time of so much grief, I'm thinking about the role of spiritual practices in helping us to stay connected between our inner realms of grief and the outer realms of a grieving world. The spiritual practice of writing that I teach and often lead in my guided writing sessions is called contemplative correspondence. And the reason that I chose the word correspondence for it is not only that it is literally a correspondence that we write from ourselves and to ourselves, but also because it is naming the correspondence between all things, the relationship between our inner realms and the outer realms around us, between the holy within and the sacred beyond, and so much in between, right? And this is true not only of writing as a spiritual practice, but of all spiritual practices, that essentially, whether we're meditating or praying or doing embodied practice or writing or the 1,001 ways to kneel and kiss the ground, spiritual practice is a way of connecting and strengthening the connection between our inner realm and the outer realm. In the 1920s and 30s, Alfred Stieglitz took a series of photographs of clouds in the sky, and most of them in this series of over 200 photographs had nothing but the clouds against a blue sky. And when he presented this series in galleries, he named it Equivalence. And what he explained was that each viewer could interpret these photographs of clouds based on the emotions that rose as they looked at them. Well, any of us who have been flat on our backs looking up at the sky know that experience of looking up at these shapes and feeling something rising inside us. And Stieglitz said, this is the equivalent that happens when we engage in art. And I would say when we engage in the world. What we see and experience calls up the equivalent inside us. Eric Hoffer once wrote this about this idea of equivalence. He said, we can be vividly impressed only by what we are attuned to, by anything in the outside world which has some counterpart inside us. And then he went on to say this, hence it is that the old, so much more than the young, are poignantly aware of the inexorable wear and tear that is going on in the world around us. Well, he wrote those words in the last century. And in this particular moment, and possibly in all moments, I want to suggest that the young also know about the inexorable wear and tear of the world. They experience, you, if you're watching this as a young person, experience the wear and tear of this world because it is deeply in loss, especially now. So today I invite you in your own spiritual practice, whether it is one of writing or of meditating or praying or walking or doing yoga or tai chi, however you engage your own spiritual practice, I invite you to consider, where is grief rising for you now? And how might that grief, as an inner condition of your heart, open you to the losses of the world? And they are many. And how might you keep your heart open to engage ever more deeply in being present to and being part of healing the losses of our time and our world? Blessed be. Be steady and be strong, my friends.